So if you ever wanted to read a fan translation or read a visual novel in Japanese, it might be a bit difficult to find out how to actually properly buy and support a visual novel in Japanese. In this video, I want to make the process a bit easier by showing some places where you can buy them digitally or physically, as well as some tips. While this may not apply to all of them, it's common for Japanese sites to require you to actually live in Japan, or else they won't let you properly purchase a visual novel or even able to access the online stores. They seem pretty picky about outsider sales. You have two options to get around this. One way is to use a browser that hides your location, like Brave, or even just using incognito mode on your favorite browser. The more common way is to use a VPN, or virtual private network. Basically, while it's enabled, you can temporarily change your location to be in Japan, so you're able to properly view and buy products from them. NordVPN seems to be a very popular one to use at the moment. Now to get onto actual Japanese stores. The first one I'll talk about is Fanza Games, more commonly known as DMM. As far as buying digital visual novels in Japanese goes, DMM seems to have one of, if not the biggest library of digital visual novels available for purchasing. There are three things to keep in mind when using DMM. One, you have to search for the visual novel with the original Japanese title. If you can't type in Japanese, you can always copy the original Japanese title from VNDB, or even better, look for a release page and see if there's a direct link to the DMM store on VNDB. Secondly, while DMM supports credit card and I believe PayPal, you have to use them to buy DMM points, and then you can use those points to buy the visual novels. Thirdly, all DMM releases have DRM, or Digital Rights Management. For the first time you open a visual novel you bought, you will need an internet connection and will need to enter in your DMM login credentials to confirm to DMM that the visual novel you own is yours. I guess it's their way of preventing piracy or something. The DRM program to enter credentials has to be downloaded separately. There are very rare cases where visual novels bought through DMM require a separate application called DMM Game Player to be installed before you can properly download and read the VN. There are other digital stores that have visual novels in eroge, but I haven't used them as much as DMM. I know of DL Site, Gyuto, and a whole bunch of others. Similar to DMM, you'll need to search for visual novels by their Japanese name or use VNDB to find direct links to digital stores on release pages. Unlike DMM, I don't believe most of these sites have DRM, so you should be able to just buy, download, and get to reading immediately. I don't believe the library for any of these stores is quite as big as DMM, but I could be wrong. If you're interested in buying physical copies of visual novels, the Japanese version of Amazon CO JP, is a pretty reliable place for both all ages visual novels and 18+ eroge. Similar to all other sites mentioned, make sure you search for the visual novel by its Japanese name. However, if you want to get an 18+ eroge shipped to you, it may be safer to try to use proxies or forwarding, which I'll talk about next. Alright, let's talk about the couple of workarounds for visual novels that can't be shipped out of Japan into another country: proxies and/or forwarding, depending on the store you use. Proxies is for Japanese stores that won't even let you purchase the product if you don't live in Japan. With proxies, you pay someone to buy a product for you that lives in Japan, then they'll directly send the product to you. Forwarding is for when you're allowed to pay for a product on a Japanese store, but they only ship to local Japanese addresses. With forwarding, after you pay for the item you want, you pay someone to ship to their local Japanese address, then they'll ship it to you directly after receiving it. Both of these may sound fishy to those who haven't used them before, but in the description below, I included a list of the most trusted proxy and forwarding sites many people use. Just excuse the not politically correct URL name, it's a very informative wiki page. Some other stores where you can buy physical copies of Japanese visual novels include Softmap, Melon Books, Toranoana, DMM, and Getchu. Similar to the digital releases, feel free to check out the VNDB releases section for that visual novel to see which physical stores actually have copies of that visual novel. And that's just about it for this video. Buying a visual novel in Japanese might be a little bit more difficult, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. If there's any other notable tips or stores for buying visual novels in Japanese that I didn't mention, feel free to leave a comment below for that too.